Hello. In this tutorial, I'll be discussing how to model this object in 3ds Max. You can use any 3D software you would like. So let's analyze this model using a photo editor. So I'll be using Equita. So right now, I will be modeling this one. So as it seems, this is a cylinder which it will expand, and we can see the geometry being formed. So this should be simple to create. So you don't need those edges right here, but we do need on the horizontal side to make that curve, and also we need to push or scale those vertices right here. So let's switch to 3ds Max and let's build it. So we'll create a cylinder, and it should be, if you want, 10. You can experiment. If you want, you can make it 8. And let's rotate it 90 degrees. So as you can see here, you can see the snap is turned on. So to turn on angle snapping, you just click this icon, and let's expand it. So let's change the materials on this object. So I am using a standard. It's a legacy shader. So if you want to add it, all you have to do is just click on the drop down button and then click show incompatible. And from there, you can just search for it, standard, and you can see it right here. It's legacy. Click it and then click OK. And now let's change the color to black. So let's deselect it. So with this shader, with the standard shader and the black color, it gives it a nice visual. I will increase this to 10. And if we go back to it, so we have established this area. And now we need to establish this area. So this is a primitive object. You can't do much with it. All you can do is just add more segments and caps, and that's it. In order to change it so that you can customize it, you can right click on the cylinder object and then click on editable poly. Once you change it to editable poly, and now you have access to a face, border, edge, and vertices. So let's select polygon and then extrude. So you can control how much extrusion you want. So we want to do a little bit, and then using the scale tool, so it's right here, and push it outward. And now let's delete it. So we have established the shape. So right here we can see the thickness. So to do that, select edge, double click to select the loop, and changing to the move tool. You can use press and hold the shift button and move it on the y-axis. So right now we have established that edge, and now let's give it some thickness, because right now you will not be able to texture the inside. To do that, in the modifiers list, just search for shell. And now we have a nice looking part of the game asset. So let's move on to this object right here. So what are we looking at here? So we're looking at a cylinder that has been modified from the top. You can tell this is a separate object. And as we did here, we extrude it in and we scale it down. So let's build it. So let's select the cylinder, create it anywhere you want, and extrude it out, and let's rotate it. So in case if you want to center the object, all you have to do is make sure you exit from the create object by pressing W, which is the move tool, and right here, if you right click on the down button or the up button, it will center it. So this will center on the x-axis and this will center on the y-axis. And now let's switch to rotate. So we have the angle snap on and rotate it 90 degrees. Using W to switch to transform tool and move it down. Let's make it a little bit wider. And remember, from here, it goes up. So there are many ways to do it. So let's see how we can do this. Let's go to the Modify tab, click on the cylinder, right click, and convert it to editable poly. So for now, let's get rid of this. So we want to get rid of the caps. Let's select the top faces. So simple. All we have to do is we can just scale it so that it becomes flush from the top and then move it up. And that's it. So since this is a game object, we really do not want those faces. So we can just delete. Let's undo. You could also delete those faces, select the edges, press and hold shift and move it up. Same effect. So in this case, we can scale it in to make it look nicer. but it doesn't seem to be the right path. Let's undo. Let's select the neighboring edges and scale it on the x-axis. And that's it. Very simple. So right now we want to cover those gaps. So how to do it? Just select those edges and bridge. Same thing here, here, and here. And we do the same for the back one. Bridge. Also, if you want to do it the easy way, you can select those edges and do bridge at once, and that's it. So let's focus at this area right here. All it did was you take those polygons and extrude. We select those edges and then chamfer. So right now we can see it is being very close to this edge. Let's double select the edge loop and then move it down, or maybe just control backspace, and this is the way to delete it. So let's undo. So why did we press and hold control and backspace? Because we need to get rid of the edge and the vertices. So let's just use the backspace. If you switch to vertices, you can see those vertices, and there is no edges being attached to them. This could cause many issues. So let's add a turbo smooth just to show you. It's causing issues with the geometry. So we do not want that. Let's undo and undo. Select the edge, and since we have selected before, or the last thing has been selected, just press and hold the control button and then the backspace. And now we don't have those vertices. So if we add the turbo smooth, we have clean edges. So right here we can see an issue. So let's select editable poly, right click, hide unselected, so we can see what is going on the top. And we can see right here this has been not deleted, so we select it and delete. Now let's apply the turbo smooth. We can still see an issue here. So let's switch to vertices, and right here you see it's causing issues. All we have to do is just press the backspace and it's gone. Now we should have a much smoother turbo smooth. So we can tell there is an issue right here. This is too harsh. It shouldn't be that way. So we should investigate it and see if there is an issue with the geometry. So there are many ways to check the geometry, and one of them is to check the normal. So right now, so let's select those faces. So I'm not seeing any unintended vertices. So let's select those faces, turn on the poly group, and let's see if we can flip it. This is not correct. Let's undo. So we are testing to see what's the issue here. So it could be due to lack of geometry. So right here we can see a geometry at the end, which is helping right here. So since this is going to be a low poly, we don't need to worry about it. But with your project, if you needed the object to be high poly count, yeah, you should address any issues with the geometry. So let's undo. So we're okay with keeping it that way. Let's delete the turbo smooth. I just want to check if we have any issues with the geometry. Sometimes it would be a lot easier just to rebuild. So let's delete those. Select edge and bridge, edge and bridge. And bridge. Let's add turbo smooth. And still, so it means that there is a lack of edges here. Okay, so let's switch back to Krita and look here. So we see a smooth roundiness here. So right around here. So let's build it. So right now, let's rotate and select the object, switch to polygon, and all we have to do is just extrude. So we extrude a little bit. So there are many ways of doing it. So we can extrude a little bit, and then we can bevel, So this seems to be going the right way. Maybe let's agree to it and pull it in, pull it up vertically. So let's delete those faces. And let's make sure that the top edges is flushed. So we double click on the edges and then right here, make planar. So I'm not sure which axis this is on, so I will try multiple ones. So it seems to be the Y axis. Okay. So how do we make this a bit smoother? So we can use the swift loop. If you press and hold the shift key and then select, it will adjust the curvature by itself. So this looks good. So this seems that this edge is not needed. So we select it and control and backspace. So we do see that there are issues with the geometry. So what we can do is select all. Right here, auto smooth. It fixes it all. So let's change the material to make it look nicer. Just select the material, drag and drop, and change the color to black. So let's go back to the image. So right here, this seems a bit harder and not as smooth as right here. So what do we do in this case? Simple. We select those faces and assign it a different smoothing group. So let's press 2 and deselect one. So right now, if we deselect, and so if we press the F4 or here default shading, so we can see this being a bit smoother and this right here is a bit harder as it's in the design. So let's right click and unhide all. So same thing for this one. Let's do collapse all. This will combine all the geometry and make sure that you switch it to editable polygon. And we do the same. Let's go to the editable poly, then auto smooth. Same thing here. Auto smooth and auto smooth. Let's switch back to the image. And we can see that this is aligned, whereas in the model it's not. So there are many ways of doing it. So I'm not too crazy about being scaled to the actual model. So I'll move it back. But if you like it a bit longer, let's undo. We select the object, select vertices, then box select the end vertices and move it back. and now it's aligned. So this is a game object. You don't have to be precise. And let's go back to the image. So right here, oh, what is this? So what can we see? So right now I can see a cube. I see an extrusion. And I see modifying the end. So how many ways can we create this? So from top of my head, we can do it in two ways. There is like many ways of doing it, but we can do a plane where we can shape it, then extrude it, or we can do it with a box. So let's show you the plane. So let's align to the right, and let's create a plane or plane here. So sometimes going into the orthographic view makes it a lot simpler. So let's press the plane, then extrude it out. So you don't have to worry about those geometries because this can be created with a normal map. For now, we need to focus on the main shape. So this can be done in Photoshop. You don't make those individually unless if it's a prop for a movie. So you can see here the details. This is all done with painting using hand painted textures, or you can do it with a normal map. And if you want to go the extra step, you can create those individually and then bake them in 3ds Max or Blender. So right now let's take a look at this shape. So we have a box, and then that shape. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe like half a cylinder. So let's switch back to 3ds Max. Let's see how many edges we have. So we only have one. Let's convert it to editable poly, and let's select the edge and select this edge. So we want to create the extrusion right here. So we're planning for it. So we select the Swift loop to do it a bit faster, and right here we can see like two squares. So like it's being at the center. So we see at the center right here. And another line right here near the end. And let's switch to vertices, and then press the rectangular selection tool. So in order to exit the Swift loop, you have to press the move tool. So let's change this a little bit to match the reference. So we can see this is being a bit lower, and this is a bit further. So now we have established the mint shape. So what do we do now? Let's change it to perspective. Looks a lot nicer. And let's select, change it to object selection, and then move it to the right. And then what we can do is use the shell modifier, and then we extrude it out. So what's nice about this modeling tool is that we can start with a plane, shape it however we want it, and then just with a shell modifier, it reduces a lot of the work while doing it than doing it with the cube. Okay, so this is good. Now right click and collapse all, and then we switch it to editable poly. And now we want to select the loop, the face loop. So the way I do this is to select the edge loop of a face. So I select the neighboring face, then double click. So it selects the face loop. And then extrude. So right here, we want to do it by local normal. And that's it. We are done with this piece. It's very simple and straightforward. So what else we can do with a plane? So we can do this one with a plane. So you see how we shape the plane? So I can see this is being beveled, and this is the straight line, and then we can do an extrusion right here. So this would be a face, so we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faces. So let's do that. So let's exit. So right here, before I move on, we can see the transform tool is, so the pivot is not being centered. So how do we center it? So right here in the hierarchy, we select effect pivot only, and then center to object, and then they select the effect pivot only, and that way now it's centered. So let's switch to the left side, so you can press F, and let's use a plane again. So let's see the, so we have, so right now let's reduce the edge faces and convert it to editable poly. So this is, I can load the image in here if I wanted to. So let's do that. So let's save this image, save as, save it in desktop, and then change it to JPEG. I'm sure there's a lot easier way of loading the reference into 3ds Max. So we can see it right here, right now. Okay. So let's select this and change it to edge. And as we can see here, it dips in and then extrude a little bit out. Let's switch to the vertices because this is kind of a hard edge. And then switch back to edge. Select the shift. We can use the scale tool to make it a bit horizontal and increase it in height. Push it up. So right now, if you can see, this is at the lower half. So we can see the snapping here. So this is being activated by S. It must be activated by mistake. So let's deselect it. Let's move this a bit down. Switch to vertices and switch this up. Back to edge, shift, and extrude out. So we can see this one is being tucked in. Maybe this needs to be a bit higher. And this one is a bit down and angled. Let's move this a bit to the back. And now let's add an edge here for this so we can extrude it. Let's move this a bit to the top and this one is a bit to the bottom. Okay. See? Very quick. And now let's extrude it by adding the shell modifier. This is a bit too thick. Let's make it a bit lighter. And then right click, collapse all. And let's move this to the center. So this seems a bit smaller than this one. And right now I don't like the idea of using vertices to edit it. So I will use the FFD. I will use 2x2. And the nice thing about this is you can move the vertices in groups and it affects the whole shape. So you can do 3x3x3 where it gives you more edges to play with. So since I only want to do like minor changes, the 2x2x2 is fine for now. Okay. Let's do right click and collapse all. And now let's extrude this. We select edge, face or polygon, and then extrude. So we extrude by normal. And this is good. Okay. So right here, this is a bit smoother. So how do we do it here? It's very simple. There are many ways. So one way is you can do it with edge. So we select one edge and then we do connect. So we must select the ring. So to do that, we click ring right here. So let's exit from this one. So we select one edge and then ring. We see the edge ring is being selected, and then we press connect, and then we add 2. Those are the number of I'm not sure. Oh, because I deselected. Okay, ring and connect. So what we can do is we scale on the z-axis. So we can see this is not being affected here, so we can do it manually. But the overall is looking much better. So let's select the vertices and let's fix those ones. W and then push it out. And these two, push it up. And these two, push it down. And the other way is we can just bevel it. So let's undo. And then we select those faces. And then bevel or chamfer. So it made it a lot nicer, but the issue with it is we need to do some geometry adjustment. So for now, I will stick with the, or you can do it with the Swift tool, just shift and it will adjust it. And from here, you select chamfer. So this might be the easiest way of doing it. So I switch to the transform tool, I select this one and delete. Again, we select the material and we drag and drop and change the color to black. So how about the trigger? So how about the trigger right here? So there are many ways of doing it. So let me show you one simple way of doing it. So I would use it with a spline. So right now, because you can use a line and just so to click it, to say to build it, so select line and then click, then click, then click, then click, then click, then click again. If you're done, use the right button on your mouse to deselect it. So let's go into its properties. Right here we can see a rectangle, and we want to do is enable in viewport. So right now we can see a rectangle being formed. So we can make it thicker, we can change the angles, but we do not want to do that, and we can make it a bit wider. Once we're done with it, as always, right click and convert to editable poly. Now we are left with this shape, which has been done quickly. So we can see it's being tapered at the front and it's being a bit thicker on the back. So how do we do it here? Easy, using the FFD. So I'll stick with 2x2, drop down button, then control points. So we select those vertices and now use the scale tool and put them in. And that's it. Collapse all and then change the material. And the color to black. So how about the trigger? So this one, we can use the line tool. So select left and then just because of the previous selection, so it remembers it, and then that's it. Right click, select the line, right click and editable poly. Again using the FFD 2x2. So what we want is to select the bottom ones and then close it in, select the hierarchy, then collapse all. So right here we can see it's being a bit wider at the end. So how do we do that? So we select edge, we select the swift loop. Sorry, we can. So right here, let's select vertices and let's might we want to go into a wireframe mode just to make things clearer, and then looks like this, and this one moves out a little bit, and this one goes in. There's a little bit tapered at the top. Let's select polygon, then shift and extrude. So since this is a game asset, we can just collapse that. Collapse. It's okay to have triangles with game asset, since the majority of your time will be focusing on texturing the game object and it's not a high poly, so it does not matter. So I used F3 to go into wire mode. So we can see it's being a bit wider here. So let's select the edge loop and then use a scale and scale it in. This is a bit too wide, so let's select all by clicking Ctrl A and make it a bit thinner. And now I think this is a bit wider than it should be. Okay. And this goes into right here. So let's make that modification. Goes in. And this one goes a bit in. Let's undo. Let's move the whole thing back. And now let's change the material as always. Standard, and the color is black. And right here we can see another piece. So how do we do that? This is simple. Just create another cylinder and taper it at the top. So cylinder, rotate 90 degrees, center it, so to frame the image all you have to do is just click Z. So this seems not being correctly. Yeah, now it's good. Move it to the front, make it a bit thicker. Convert to editable poly. Select the edges. So this will not allow you to select as a loop because we have a missing edge here. So what we do is the border. This is not even a border, so we can do with the face. So using press and hold shift and scale it in, and then with the transform tool move it out. So this seems a bit hard with it, so we select the faces and select number 2. So let's select the object, change the material and select black. So how about this right here, the cloth? So you can do this with a line using a spline tool. So this will require a lot more work. One way of doing it is just take this object, let's make another copy of it, and just draw the line in so we can see. And now using the knife tool, so let's go into edit. So let's hide everything, hide and select it. So we use the cut tool, and now we can draw it in. So let's draw it. So we see here and that's it. Now let's bevel it or chamfer it. Chamfer. So we have to be really careful here. So you have to remember a lot of the geometry. Let's see if we can convert this to a face. Yes, create shape from selection. So let's undo. Create shape from selection. Smooth, that's fine. I'm right here. So let's keep this. I'm right here. Let's edit the. So this is where you can do a lot of the modifications. So it's a lot of it you cannot expect. Yeah, this does not seem to be very appealing to me. Let's see if we can do it radial. So this might work. So my guess, let's see. Let's convert it to editable poly. And let's remove a lot of the edges. Yeah, it's not going to work. Okay. So let's delete. Go back to the object. Go back to edge and let's chamfer. Let's make it a bit thicker. Let's start deleting. So you have to use a lot of judgment here. It doesn't seem to be that simple. So we can use, just delete this one. I don't know. So let's delete. See how it looks. Maybe we can target weld this vertices to that. Make this a bit smoother. So delete this. So let's slide those edges. We can use constraint and just move it down. Anyway, rich. Okay. So this seems okay for now. Yeah, this seems fine. So we do have a lot of edges here that we should merge, so we can do so this is okay for now. Remove unwanted geometry, so you'll be the judge. So this is an extra vertex that we not need, so backspace, and then we give it the shell. So maybe this is 0 and we can try the outer one. Much better. So let's make it look a bit more realistic. Let's collapse all. and then using change to editable poly and using vertices, let's drag this one down and drag this one also down. And let's do unhide all. So we can see this one is part of it hidden. So let's move it down. And let's make this a bit more realistic. Move it down here. Maybe add a loop here. Move it out. And then this one here, make it more blushed. Maybe move it up a little bit. And that's it. So we're missing this piece, and this is a lot simpler. We can just use a plane. Let's go to the left. So this seems a very straightforward. All we have to do is just, we have an edge here. So let's use an edge loop to make it a lot faster. So vertex, select and move it down. Select edge and then using the shift and move it up. So we have established this, and now we need to make this smaller. You can always use the right click, and if you want to do it a lot faster, and move it a bit down, and from the looks of it this is a bit smaller. So what we do is, let's move it down to the gun. Let's make it smaller. So we need to do some adjustment. So this is flushed with this area, so let's move it in. It's a bit straight line. It's a bit higher and a lot shorter. And we can see here that there's a little bit of curviness to it. So let's make it a bit thicker using shell. Then collapse all. Right click, convert to editable poly. And using the swift tool, select shift and select this edge, and it will make it a bit curvy. So it needs some fixing right here. Now let's center the pivot, effect pivot only, then center to object, deselect, and then here on the x-axis we select it to 0. And now let's change the materials to standard and the color to black. So how about this one right here? This is simple and straightforward. We can always use a cylinder, but at the top we just move it up. So we can reuse this one. Let's select edge, use the Swift, and I think this is enough. Now let's use the polygon, select that, delete, select this one also, and then delete. Select the top one, and then delete those ones too. Use the edge, press shift, and move up. Let's extrude again to make that edge there, the chamfer, and then switch to vertices and move those in. And now, as always, let's give it the shell modifier, make it a little bit thicker. And now let's center the pivot point to the object and move it down. So this does look a bit closer than here, so let's adjust it. Let's make some adjustments. So we can select those pivots, move it up, right click, move it closer. So right here it's going into the geometry. We can use the Swift tool with the shift to help with the curvature. So this is not symmetric. Okay, so we need to fix that. So let's move it up a little bit. Delete the 1/2. Let's add another edge loop here. Let's select face and in the middle. Select the polygon, then delete, and then add a symmetry modifier. So there seems to be an issue with the pivot. Yes, so there seems to be an issue with the pivot. So let's go to the effect pivot only. So we can see here, it shouldn't be like that. So yeah, the pivot is not right. So let's go to utilities, and here we have reset form. So let's select it, reset selected, and right click here and collapse all. This should reset the pivot. Let's convert this to editable poly, and let's add a symmetry to it. And we need to flip it. Now let's add another edit poly modifier. We select those polygons and we break them. So this is too much polygons. So let's select those edges and delete. So this should be much better now. Let's center the pivot and move back. And that is it. Thank you very much and we'll see you later. Bye for now.